so for someone who's very novice, I have no idea how to do this. And so I thank you for sharing about the time commitment. Just in terms of planning in advance, would you suggest maybe sort of like in the summertime, planning it out, getting all of this done maybe a year in advance or so for a course that I would be teaching, say, next fall, just so that I have time to really get it and test it and kind of make sure that it is the way that I want it to be?
Yes, exactly. So it took me a year to convert an entire course, a 16-week class, into online. And because it takes time, by the way, to create all of those material. But the only great thing about it is I've already been teaching this class in traditional format. So I already know what I'm going to teach. I already know the topics. I already have the slides, the PowerPoint. Now it's just to tweak it to make it user-friendly on the online environment and getting still the student engaged, feeling as an instructor that I'm there with them. And so that was how I spent most of my time, the instructional design part.
Thank you.
And we have other people who can speak to that. I don't know if Margine, Josh, Dan, did you have thoughts on sort of the planning of conversion process?
The earlier you can start, the better.
The earlier you start, the better.
Because we can be involved and we can kind of give you some additional tips or tutorials. Exactly. So we're available for consults.
And then I actually was taking my card out to give to you. Probably have 4 of them.
You've given me a credit all time. Thank you.
But we will walk you through the process from just thinking about it, conceptualizing it, helping you get it down on paper, showing you some tips and tricks of the tool, and then get you going and maybe even help you prototype your first couple pages.
Can you talk a little bit about prototyping, how we can be able to kind of do that?
So we're not subject matter experts, but if you kind of give us a few ideas or pages, we can kind of take your subject matter and do a couple different options of how you might want to teach it. Maybe you want to have some of those formative assessment quizzes. Maybe you want to have some of those quick tips, those pop-ups. And so we can give you some tips and tricks to make it, to take that pedagogy on top of your subject matter expertise and kind of make it look good and that kind of stuff. And by doing that prototyping, we also are giving you a model to work from, so you can get in there and play with it, do it, whatever.
Aurelie mentioned using PowerPoint as sort of the prototype. I know that you can use Poplet or some other sort of mind mapping thing to figure out any branching that you want done.
I also like pencil and paper and whiteboard.
The old-fashioned pencil paper whiteboard analog is really good.
It's just literally I use a combination of flow charting just to see what the paths are, and then also what do you call it in video?
Storyboarding?
Storyboarding, thank you, and just doodling the stick figures to say here's the kind of thing that I want to appear on this slide, and I don't like doing it with PowerPoint because for me it's it feels redundant.
Yeah.
Like I'm doing it in PowerPoint and I'm doing it in CSCR, so I just doodle things up quick to mock it up.
Or just even an outline.
Exactly, or an outline.
And then you know what goes on what, you can kind of chunk it out by what slide. It kind of depends on your own cognitive process.
And that's sort of the biggest key right there. What are you comfortable, what tools are you already comfortable working with? Start there.
And exactly what I mentioned is have an outline ready, no matter which tool you use, but before you open up the CSCR, I'm going to create my lecture now. It's I don't know from where to start. Then it's going to make it frustrating because, at least the CSCR sometimes was sometimes was working and sometimes it was not working. And you click and nothing happens and you're like, what happened? You call Blair, this is happening. And then, okay, you fix it and then you go on and but still, it's still a cool tool.
Our director likes to use the idea of building the airplane while it's in flight. When you're trying to make your pedagogical and teaching decisions while you're actually learning that tool. So you can do the pedagogical and teaching decisions ahead of time, and then have somebody walk you through how to convert that to the tool, and you're flying the plane when you're supposed to be. All right, we've never really finished that part. We've never actually gotten past the first part of that.
And then you don't crash the plane.
Right. Or
classes? And the answer was sort of an emphatic no.
Mm-hmm.
Would you do some of your other classes with this, or are you always just looking for different tools, or can you say more about why not, and what other things you would do?
Well, no, I think it was just like the time commitment with the CSCR to get it really to work smoothly. Because, like, imagine if you put in the wrong link, the student cannot go back to the previous slide, or they can move forward. So you do spend time to make sure that you get everything set up correctly. When you click on this, you know exactly what is going to happen. So that was time commitment. So, but I do enjoy the tool per se. I think it's indeed like a neat approach, alternative way to narrate a slide to really get the student to digest some material at their own time, and then to make sure that they're not just skipping it through because they will not see, they will not learn. I want to make sure that they're learning what I want them to learn, and then including assessment tool instead of having those worksheets that I was talking about. I just put in some quizzes right there, right after they watch the video, after they read one paragraph or something like that. And I spend a lot of time also. I'm a conscious instructor about do they feel my presence? Am I there, or are they left alone? So I'm spending time thinking what else can I do? What else can I add to this slide to make it more visually friendly, or they feel oh yeah, an instructor is right there next to me teaching me something. As I told you, I was using those bubble speech. Oh, did you? And all of those things, you need time to think about those. And this is opposite from narrative slide. You just go, hello, okay, today you're going to learn about this, and then you're done recording. And
if you just want to use have a talking head and add quiz questions to that, on the back side of your sheet, you'll see that there are tools like EduCanon and Edpuzzle. Some of these tools that Lauren Rosen talked about 3 weeks ago in, I don't know how long ago it was now, in the Flip It session, but we went through some of these. So if you just have a talking head video and you just want to make them stop before they go on and do a self-check with a couple of multiple choice questions, some of these other tools might be a much easier thing, because then you don't have to worry about making the decisions of which slide do I send them to for this or that, because it's a much simpler process. So before you, and as with any tool, you kind of have to play around with them to figure out whether this is a tool that matches your style and is the right tool for the job, but there might be some other alternatives for tools that would work.
So I would like to make one comment. The cool comment of the a positive comment of the CSCR is you can tweak it, meaning that you can edit it even after you launch it already. So this is a particular example that happened. In summer 2014, the first semester that I launched my blended course, they had to learn about the DNA, RNA, protein, transcription, translation. Somehow, so at the end of every week, they always have a quiz. Somehow, the quiz, 80% of the students failed on the DNA, RNA, protein. The answer was there is something off here. It seems to me that there's some concept that they missed, and that lecture was delivered through CSCR. So what I was able to do for the next semester, I was able to add in additional slides, additional pages to enhance a certain concept that they may have not gotten it right. So in spring 2015, I launched again the class as a blended version, and this time everybody succeeded with the quiz on DNA, RNA, protein. So this is much easier than the narrated slide. Okay, you can add a slide, tweak it, but you need to make sure that your voice tone is similar to before, whatever. But with the CSCR, it's very easy to plug in something, delete the page, and then publish it again.
And if you do want to add audio or video, or you have a snippet from a previous lecture that you recorded, you can always grab that and embed it in as well if you want.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, not also do as well, but CSCRs.
So that's my question is, you don't have to commit class 100% to the CSCR. You can do sections of it, what you feel comfortable with.
Exactly.
Stay with your voiceover lecture for a while and see what you like and don't like, and then play with that.
Yeah.
So you don't, I'm assuming you took a year to do this, but you could just do pieces of it at your own pace and
Yeah.
comfort level.
And this is true. So something that I want to mention, when I say the lectures are delivered as a narrated slide is that like it's one topic. Each lecture will last about 10 to 15 minutes. In 10 to 15 minutes, I'm not covering everything. So it's why one topic is divided in subtopic. So it's kind of like every lecture, every topic will have at least like 3 mini video that the student has to go through. So in one case, so I was smart. I got like several guest lecturers to help me to cover 26 topics. Imagine 26 topics. Every topic is like 3 mini lectures. There's a lot of talking that I was doing. And so what happened, like one of the invited guest lecture was covering evolution by natural selection. She had like, it was narrated slide. She created 3 mini lectures. However, she forgot to cover the DNA, RNA, protein. So what happened, like this is like one option. I could have just done it narrated slide, but it would have been the easiest way. However, I didn't want the student to get confused with like, how is it possible? I'm listening to one voice, the first 3 mini lecture, and mini lecture number 4 is someone else. I was conscious about that. So it's like, let me do it as a CSCR then. So then they were able to practice and click and learn the material in an alternative way. So when I say like it took me a year to completely blend, like one is like design, like creating your lecture, but like something about online course is like you need to keep your student engaged with the material. You need to find ways to assess what they learn, what they needed to learn, and that is another layer of instructional design that I really spend my time on. And like, there's like how will I check that like I'm matching my learner objective with my quizzes, or like the activity that I'm asking them to do, and etc. So the 1 year period is not only like creating the lectures, sitting in a booth, or like creating CSCR, but also like all of this behind scene on instructional design.
How many of you in the room have, oh, go ahead, Ernest.
The question is a bit of a complicated type of question.
Awesome, those are our favorites.
Okay. So my question is, how do you convince or help folks to develop more of an open mind to teaching using this approach, given the time commitment? It does require a little time, and there are folks who are resistant, apprehensive, and have all kinds of concerns. Any advice as to how one might be able to talk about this in a way that might help people be more receptive, given all of the time-related issues? And anyone can chime in. It's not directed to you, but any of these guys in the room can step in as well. Thank you.
Well, I guess the way that I view it is like I'm not trying to force each of you to use the CSCR. My goal is to tell you like this is an alternative way. Like you can think about, because there are like 1,000 way of teaching online. And then I picked narrated slide and I picked CSCR, and it works for me. And like here am I like talking about it. If someone else, any of you come up with, hey, by the way, I tried this other way to teach my lecture. I'm really open. I'm always into like new ideas, like new technology. So I think it's more like me displaying a tool that is available, and then that you could use. And when I mentioned about the time commitment, I just wanted to be upfront, like telling you, by the way, it will take you time to do that, but it's still like the outcome of it. It's a cool tool, like I like it, don't get me wrong. It's just like me thinking back, oh, I spent a lot of time creating like that lecture, but here am I created those for summer 2014. I'm standing here, we are in like fall 2015, and I'm still using that CSCR, and I will be launching again the class completely online next summer, and I'm still using the CSCR. So that's a cool idea that you can recycle the tool, you can update it as the time goes, and easily, and so.
Anybody who has the answer? Yes. Chris?
Well, I would say, so one of the things that Aurelie mentioned was that, right, she picked things that she thought were kind of like boring to teach, right? We all have those things in our classes that we're like, you know, you have to cover it, but it's keeping you from getting the things you're actually excited to teach and you hope to get the students excited about. So that's maybe like another way to convince people to try these things, is it's, right, yeah, it's that initial time investment, but then now you don't have to talk about these things that you find boring too, right? Because you can do it once, and maybe you have to tweak it every once in a while, but you've got this tool now that you can just roll out there, you know, semester after semester, maybe with modifications, obviously, every once in a while. But, you know, and then you can spend more time on what everybody else what you find exciting, what the students hopefully find exciting. And like that's where you use it, as opposed to like
kind of love that idea because you're using the novelty of the tool to add some excitement to the otherwise boring topic, and so the students, that way, maybe as an instructor, you don't have to rally quite so much to be like, this is the best section of the thing ever. You can just like, oh, it's a novel tool, and the students will be like, all right, I'll get into this a little bit more.
Yeah, but I'd be curious if the CSCR, since you've got that level of questioning and thinking that you might not get with just narrated slides, does it prepare students to come to your class then that they already know a certain level of stuff and they're ready to think deeper things or have better discussions?
Like indeed, like the way that I formatted my class as a blender is like they have 1 week to go over the material, and then we meet for face-to-face time for discussion. And before the face-to-face time happens, they have already to complete like the discussion post as well as the online quizzes. And what I do before that is like I grade all of those quizzes to make sure that like I know exactly what was what was like missing, what didn't they get. So for instance, about the story about the DNA RNA protein. Sorry about that. I was able to see that in the quizzes. Like, okay, something didn't work. So then when they came to a face-to-face time, I went again through the material by quizzing them again, but let them work as a team, and then me telling them, by the way, you missed this. This is a problem. And so it's like, that's the key thing about the discussion, like me preparing them, I'm assuming, and I want them to be ready to discuss, and we're moving it to a higher order, meaning that like we're covering different other topics, meaning like how can they apply what they're doing by themselves, like in a context of a discussion. So I think one example, they learn about the nitrogen life cycle, how the nitrogen from the atmosphere goes down, and then I gave them like a discussion post about like what will happen if they're overuser of nitrogen as a fertilizer. What are the impact of that? So they have already to start thinking. When they come to class, what I give them a case study, a real case that happened in Des Moines, where the water company sued 3 counties for a high level of nitrogen in the river because they're overusing pesticides. So when they come to class, they already know the concept of the nitrogen cycle. They already know that. Now I'm showing them how to apply that knowledge and like to be this informed citizen. This is a biology class for non-major, so that's my goal. Not to get them to be scientists, but at least to be able to understand why science is important. So now they apply. As I ask them, if you were the water company, what will be your argument for this suing those counties? If you were the farmers, what will be your other argument why this is unfair for them to be sued? And like, how about the Des Moines people? What happened is that was like the cool thing, that case happened within the same month that they were learning about the nitrogen cycle. And then the key thing was like the level of nitrogen in the water was like 30 times higher than what was allowed. So what happens is that the water company had to filter the water to give like drinkable water to the city. So they spent more than $1 million for filtering. So then, since the bill got too high, they sued the counties, and then that created like a management at the point of the farmer. Is there a way for them to make sure that they're not over-fertilizing, or whatever fertilizer they use get used properly, doesn't go into groundwater, whatever it is. So then that's my idea of a discussion time, like applying the knowledge in a different ways, or how it can impact their life or something like that.
Second question. The multiple choice where they had to get the right answer before they give you a mark,
Mm-hmm.
is that embedded is that another tool coming into CSCR, or is that a CSCR?
It's a CSCR tool. Like you have option of multiple questions or everything.
In the activity sheet, we have a way to do that, but we also included the how to embed Google Forms. One of the things that CSCR does not do, unless you get into Moodle, unless you're using Moodle, and you can, it's a complicated process from what I understand, but it doesn't report back out to the instructor whether they're getting this or not. So the internal CSCR quizzes are great for self-checks for the students, or for like stopping them from going any further until they get it right, or click on the right button anyway. But if you want formative feedback coming back to you, embedding a Qualtrics survey or Google Form survey would be a good way of doing that. Now I don't think that the answers of that can then stop them.
I thought she could only
CSCR tool, yes, but if you embed a Google Forms tool, no.
Okay.
So there are trade-offs on where to use the different ones and when to use them. How many of you have already used CSCR? Played with it a little bit? Okay, starting to. And other thoughts on how you're using it? How many of them are using it as case studies? For a case study solution? For a critical reader solution? Or thinking about using it for a critical study solution? How many of you are thinking about using it for a case scenario solution? So both, awesome. For a flipped lecture solution, thinking about? Okay. Any other thoughts or concerns? Have you used any other tools for this?
Not other tools, but one thing that I noticed when I was just playing around with it, is there, as you're going through, if you need to leave, is there a way for the student to sort of save their place, or do they have to start over every time?
It depends. Okay, the way that I see it, like depends if they leave the screen open, but the only way you click home button and you return to home and you start
It
again.
seemed like with the question, I exited and came back in, and I had to re-answer the question every time to get past slide 2.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, no, only things like captivating storyline where it's like forms, keeps track of your play.
Okay. So you could build in navigation things to break it up into chunks or.
So a table of contents
It's
is
meant
beginning?
to be only 5 to 10 minutes, hopefully. Sustain that concentration.
I hope so.
And that might be, the smarter observation is make these chunks smaller because it's easier to fix a smaller chunked piece than it is to fix, the semester CSCR, and then if you want to change one piece of it, it's better to have smaller chunks.
Modularity is good.
Yeah.
Design practice everywhere anyway, so that way you can use it with the course if you're doing major curriculum restructure, or you can do something like just hypothetically, so yeah, just doing smaller chunks. So that you
Yeah,
can do
but
stuff.
I think this would be awesome to deliver a consistent curriculum across the statewide campus for the studying portion of the curriculum. So.
And there's a huge advantage for this type of a flipped learning for that level of modularity or accessibility where maybe they can't come in. So for the blended components or online components of it, the flexibility of creating one of these, though it takes a while to do so, over the long term, it's much more accessible than a live lecture every time somebody needs it.
And the fact that it's easier to edit than voiceover slides is, I think, a huge selling point, especially in a field where things are constantly changing.
Yeah. Those are our favorite.
So what's the, I'm not clear on what's the difference between CSCR and me just going to these different programs and putting them on is it just that it's all together already?
You're talking about some of the different programs with the narrated videos and the quizzes.
Like Educan and Poppin, what's the difference between CSCR and
There depends. There are certain, Josh.
What I like to say is CSCR is an aggregation tool.
is what?
An aggregation tool.
Okay.
You just take all those disparate pieces and you're using CSCR to aggregate it all together.
So you can embed all of those different tools within CSCR, probably, or a lot of them.
Most likely, yeah.
You can also put them
Or-
into Learn at UW,
Or
but
you could use
not.
D2L as the aggregation tool.
Right.
Right.
It's just where you're doing that aggregation.
There are different, but there are different abilities, affordances for each one of them as far as how you guide the student along the path. Do you want to keep them within a certain tool? Do you want to keep them within D2L? Do you want to just let them go and say, just follow all the directions on this page and you're going to be going all over the internet back and forth versus in the same frame on the same screen, having these things happen. And again, I have not looked at all of these tools, so I can't answer that question specifically, but every tool seems to have its little affordance and its constraints and pros and cons, and so much of it is which one feels right for you and which one is accessible for your students.
Aurelie, do your students then access these and your recorded lectures through a Learn at UW
Yes.
site?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like it's embedded within like the course page, and then like they have access to launching the video, but like before that, there will be like a mini introduction on what is this content about, and then I'll give them the learning objective. After watching this, you should be able to do A, B, C, D, and then like here you go, they can launch the topics. But as I mentioned, like every topic is divided in mini topics, and every mini topic will have also a mini intro, like what is this mini topic about, and then after they finish up all of those topics, they will have 2 topics per week, and then at the end of the week, they will have to take a quiz. Mm-hmm. Yes.
So I have a question that is maybe a little bit of a tangent. The activity sheet. Are these useful? Should I force you all to get in and do this stuff right now in this hour session? Or is this better for you to just take home and play with on your own? Okay, I'm seeing some nods for the second. Back and forth. Chris isn't sure if he takes it home, will he actually do it?
Well, more so that like so with this, because of sort of like I feel like there's not so much that there's a learning curve with the software.
Yeah.
I feel like like if your whole hour was devoted to playing with it, you might actually like learn something from it for this particular instance.
Right.
But like in 10 or 15 minutes at the end, like you might just be getting to the point where you're like, oh, like I have 2 pages linked together, and then you're like, okay, well.
And that was that.
You know, but I mean, like some of the other ones that we've, like so the flip one, we were messing with some of the stuff that's on here in the back.
Right.
Like I think you could take some time to play with that and talk about how that works, because those are pretty cool.
Yeah, and when we started this last spring, we had things like Twitter where it was sign up for a thing and now go do 1, 2, 3, and it was very much a quick sort of things. Captivate, CSCR, some of these are a little bit more complicated to try to fit into an hour, and so to even get started, it takes quite a bit of overhead for that.
Right, also I found it really valuable being the discussion, because there's more than just pushing buttons. There's always pedagogical questions about why you use the tool, when, and how. Much better than how to get in and make it work.
And if I can make a comment about this active sheet, because like Martin sent it to me yesterday, something that I found really cool was like he's given you a template to use, like a lecture that has already been designed, and he's asking you to tweak it and like change it and like play with it. And I think that's the best way, indeed, like to learn like the tool and to be comfortable with it before you jumping in with your own lecture.
Rather than starting from scratch.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
Yeah. All right.
It's a good reference too. I have exactly on my desk of like, I want to use this for this application,
Okay, which brings me to my second question is, next semester, instead of trying to orchestrate 2 speakers a week, we were thinking of just doing 1 speaker a week and spending the time that I would have spent trying to rush together a second speaker, actually developing these into like a second page, a little bit more in depth. Like a hands-on didactic, step-by-step, do this, and this. Would that be worth doing? Would you be interested in that sort of thing? So you have, if you didn't come to this session, for example, you could go to the lab webpage, see the video of the example, and then get in and work on it on your own. So we're kind of blending this, or flipping it, if you will. Useful, yes? Okay. And that way you don't have to come Tuesdays and Fridays, and gives you a little bit more time.
But we like to see you
But we love
whenever
to
you
see
want.
you, and it helps us get funding to do this. Okay, say that again, because that was my original thought on video.
If we have the materials ready, like we have our lesson plans, ideas, instead of coming and playing with what you give us, that we would work on our own items.
So you'd like some sort of a space where you could come in with consultants to help you develop things. That's an interesting idea. Let's see if we can work on that. Like a digital media center.
Yes, you already have.
We don't respond.
He's just trying to get this on camera.
It got shut down.
That has funding.
Yeah, I mean, I think I heard maybe 2 different options of what you're saying.
which is the Active Teaching Lab chat, which is Mondays from 11:30 to 12:30. And that's a very free-form time when you can come, we can continue the conversation and the discussion that's so valuable here. But like last Monday, we had a couple people come with specific questions about tools that we've addressed in the past. And so we kind of had 2 consultations that were just going on in that hour, talking about things that they were trying to do with the tools and how they could make that work and what was the pedagogy behind it. And so that's also a space that we can currently use for those types of things. So Mondays, no, 11:30, 12:30.
The other thing that I was thinking about doing, and we tried once last semester, was to just have sort of a come in and share your own ideas and technologies. And so, how many people use D2L? Wouldn't it be cool to have you show up how you use the homepage space? Yes, Josh?
I'm just coming up with this out of the blue. What about having us consultants do kind of our version of open office hours, where you could just hop into a web conference from wherever you are, share your desktop, and we kind of brainstorm with you on the fly. And like we just say, hey, you know, every Monday, Mondays are horrible. Every Tuesday from 1 to 2 or 1 to 3, Josh Harder is going to be in open office hours, and you could click on this link and hop into a virtual room and kind of talk with him about what you're doing in your CSCR or your CAP day or what have you.
Reddit Ask Josh Anything.
That would be cool.
I happen to have access to webinar stuff like all y'all do, so I just thought maybe, you know, virtual open office hours. And that way, if you're over in SMPH or if you're, you know, halfway across the state because you're doing remote sessions, you can just, or it's snowing, or you don't want to get out of your pajamas,
Negative
or
45.
you don't have to turn on your webcam. So.
And I had organized a series of short series of workshops earlier this fall on critical readers, and as part of that, I do have an open lab, a CSCR open lab scheduled during the winter break on January 5th. So if you all sign in and have your email addresses, we can notify you that this is happening. So we'll have consultants there, and you can just drop in and work on something and ask questions.
And probably not just critical reader. If you came in